Okay, so I want you to hold two very different images in your head for a second.
Okay.
On the one hand, you have Nelson Mandela, Robben Island. 27 years of political imprisonment, heavy historical global scale stuff.
The definition of high stakes. I mean, the man is literally carrying the weight of a nation's future while sleeping on a concrete floor.
Right. So that's one image. Now, on the other hand, I want you to picture a 16-year-old student in a boarding house.
A very different world.
Totally. They're trying to study for a math test, but their roommate is blasting music and there are socks everywhere, none of them matching. And they haven't had a moment of actual privacy in like 3 weeks.
It feels ridiculous to even put those two in the same conversation, doesn't it? Like we're somehow trivializing history.
It does. It feels almost disrespectful. But that is exactly where we're starting today. We're looking at this fascinating document called What a Boarder Can Learn from Nelson Mandela.
And look, the argument isn't that homework is the same as hard labor.
No, not at all.
We have to be crystal clear on that. This isn't about the scale of the suffering. It's about the mechanism of survival. It's about what happens to your brain and your heart when you are forced to live in close quarters with people you did not choose, under rules you did not write.
Exactly. The whole premise is that the emotional toolkit you need to survive a prison cell with your dignity intact is surprisingly similar to the toolkit you need to navigate a dormitory without losing your mind.
Which makes total sense when you strip away the context, right? Both are about confinement. Both are about constant friction.
And both force you to answer that really fundamental question, who am I going to be when I can't just walk away?
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack that toolkit. We're talking about these, high-level virtues, resilience, dignity, self-control, respect.
But not in that abstract commencement speech kind of way.
No, we need to make them practical. We need to see how these big ideas actually help you survive a Tuesday night when the heater's broken and everyone is yelling.
Exactly. We need to operationalize them.
So let's get into the reality of it first. Because the text we're looking at, it just starts by stripping away that, Harry Potter, Hogwarts gloss.
Oh, yeah.
It admits that boarding is a pressure cooker.
It uses the term hothouse effect.
Yeah.
And everything grows faster in a hothouse. Friendships, sure, but also conflicts.
That's a great way to put it.
In a normal day school, if you have a bad interaction, the bell rings, you go home, you have a sanctuary, you get to reset.
Right. You vent to your parents, you play video games, you sleep in your own bed. That buffer zone is real.
In boarding, that buffer zone is gone. You walk away from an argument, you go to your room, and the person you just argued with is in the room.
Or they're in the shower next to you.
Oh.
Or is sitting across from you at dinner. There's no escape.
It's the friction of proximity. And that lack of control is the primary stressor. The text identifies this specific pivot point that comes from all that stress.
What's that?
It calls it moments when it would be easier to react than to reflect.
Easier to react than to reflect.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the whole thing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Because when you're tired and cornered and just annoyed, your biology wants to react and wants to snap. It wants to be petty. Reflection takes effort.
And that's where the Mandela comparison becomes so powerful. Because if anyone had a biological right to just react, to rage, to hate, to shut down, it was him.
Absolutely.
But he didn't. He chose reflection. And the document breaks this down into 4 specific lessons. The first one is resilience. And I feel like resilience is such a buzzword now. We hear it constantly, just be resilient. But it usually just means suck it up.
That is the common misunderstanding. We confuse resilience with toughness. We think of armor. We think, I just need to build a wall so nothing can hurt me.
Right. You just numb yourself. You stop caring so things stop stinging.
But the text defines resilience very differently. It says it's about staying strong without becoming hard.
Without becoming hard. That is such a crucial distinction.
It's everything. I mean, if you come out of boarding school or prison, in Mandela's case, and you're tough, but you're also cynical and defensive and you can't trust anyone, you haven't won.
No.
The environment defeated you because it stole your softness. It stole your humanity.
So resilience isn't about not feeling the pain. It's about feeling it, but not letting it turn you into stone.
Exactly. Mandela faced unbelievable injustice and isolation, but he didn't let bitterness define him. That's the not becoming hard part.
Okay, but let's bring this down to the dorm room floor. The text gives us a checklist for what this looks like in practice.
It does.
The first one is getting through difficult days without giving up. That feels like the endurance piece, just, gritting your teeth.
That's the baseline. Just keep going. But then the second point is learning from setbacks rather than being defeated by them. That's more of a growth mindset.
Okay.
But the third point, that's the one that really connects back to not becoming hard,
Which is?
staying respectful even when frustrated.
Oh, that is the heavy lift. It is so easy to be respectful when you've had a great night's sleep and got an A on your paper.
Sure.
But when you're running on fumes and someone just ate your snacks,
That's the test. And think about the becoming hard alternative. If you're frustrated and you snap, or you get sarcastic, or you give the silent treatment, that's you hardening.
you're protecting yourself by pushing others away.
Right. Resilience is the strength to say, I am incredibly frustrated right now, but I am still going to treat you like a human being.
It's refusing to let a bad day become a bad personality,
Precisely. You remain permeable. You don't let the environment dictate your character.
which flows right into the second big lesson. Dignity. Now, usually when I hear dignity, I think of status. You know, someone demanding respect. Do you know who I am? That kind of thing.
That's the trap. We often think dignity is external. It's about how people treat us. But Mandela's definition, and the one in this text, is entirely internal. It's about how you treat others, regardless of how they're treating you.
The text says dignity is not about status or popularity.
And in a high school setting, that is a radical idea.
Yeah.
Because for a teenager, social hierarchy is like everything.
It's the whole world.
But the text defines dignity as how you choose to act when no one is forcing you to do the right thing.
It's that old character is what you do when no one's watching idea.
Exactly. And it gives us what I'd call an anti-list, behaviors that instantly destroy your own dignity.
I saw that. Gossip was right at the top.
Gossip, humiliation, and lowering oneself to anger.
Okay, we have to talk about humiliation, though, because in a school setting, that line is so blurry. You've got banter, you've got roasting, which is basically a love language for some teenagers.
Right.
And then you have humiliation.
It's a razor-thin line. But the text suggests that the moment your goal is to degrade someone else, to make them feel small so you can feel big, you have sacrificed your own dignity.
So it's a paradox. You think you're establishing dominance by roasting someone, but you're actually degrading your own character.
That's the shift in perspective. If I humiliate you, I haven't won. I've lost. I've lowered myself. Mandela believed you cannot humiliate another person without humiliating yourself in the process.
So if that's what we avoid, what's the action list? How do we build dignity?
The text lists. Speaking respectfully, even in disagreement. Treating shared spaces with care. And then the big one. Taking responsibility for your actions.
Taking responsibility. That's the ultimate power move, isn't it?
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
think about the instinct. When you get caught doing something wrong in a dorm, it wasn't me. He started it. It's not fair.
It's defensive. It's frantic.
Yeah, and it's weak. Dignity is calm. Dignity is saying, yes, I did that. I was wrong. I will fix it. That just stops people in their tracks.
It shows a level of self-possession that's so rare.
You're owning your narrative. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're an agent in the room.
Which brings us right to the mechanism for that agency. Lesson 3, self-control.
And this might be the hardest one of all.
I think so. The text identifies self-control as one of Mandela's superpowers, and it sets up this dynamic between control and response.
This is pure Stoic philosophy coming through here. We cannot control the environment. In a boarding house, the variables are infinite. The noise, the smells, the rules, the moves of other people.
That's just chaos.
It is. But, as the text says, we can control how we respond.
And it talks about the pause button, pausing before reacting in anger.
And I want to linger on that because it sounds like such a cliche, just pause. But biologically, what's happening there is a war.
Okay, let's play this out. You walk into your dorm. Someone has used your favorite mug. And not just used it, they've left it on the floor unwashed with something growing in it.
The rage is instant.
It's physical. Your heart rate spikes. You want to scream. You want to throw the mug.
That is your amygdala. That is millions of years of evolution saying threat, disrespect, attack. And the text says, this is the moment. This is the test.
Pressing pause right then feels impossible.
It feels impossible because your brain is hijacked. But that pause, that split second where you don't scream, that's where your prefrontal cortex gets to catch up. It's where you move from animal instinct to human reason.
And the text gives some really specific, almost painful examples of what self-control looks like here.
Like walking away from conflict rather than escalating it, which, hurts your pride.
It does. You feel like you're losing the argument if you walk away.
Another one, speaking to an adult instead of letting problems grow.
Now, that's a really interesting one because in school culture, that's snitching. That's a violation of the student code.
It's often seen that way, yeah. But the text frames it as a tool of regulation. If you don't address the problem through a proper channel, what happens?
You stew.
You stew. The resentment builds, and eventually you explode. Self-control is realizing I cannot handle this alone, and I need to solve it before I lose my cool.
It's strategic. It's choosing calm over drama.
And we all claim to hate drama, but let's be honest. Drama is dopamine. It's exciting.
It is. It's addictive. Being in a feud is stimulating.
Exactly. So choosing calm is actually kind of boring. It requires discipline to say, I am going to de-escalate this, even though screaming would feel so good right now.
The text calls this a skill. It says boarding life gives you daily chances to practice it.
I love that framing. It's not a fixed trait. You aren't born with or without self-control. It's a muscle. Every time you see that dirty mug and you don't scream, you just did a rep.
You're strengthening your brain's braking system.
Yes.
So we're building resilience, dignity, self-control. These all feel very internal, very personal. But the fourth lesson shifts outward. It's about respect and community.
And this brings us right back to Mandela's core view on diversity. He believed communities are strongest when people respect their differences, not just tolerate them.
And let's be real, boarding houses are melting pots. You have kids from different cities, different countries, religions, economic backgrounds. You have night owls and early birds, slobs and neat freaks.
And our first instinct when we encounter someone who's different is usually judgment.
Oh, totally. We see someone eating a food we don't recognize or praying in a way we don't understand, and the immediate thought is, that's weird.
Why are they doing that? And not in a curious way, but in a critical way. Different feels like wrong.
Right.
But the text offers a replacement for judgment. It says, be curious rather than judgmental.
That is my favorite phrase in the whole document. Curious rather than judgmental.
It's such a powerful tool because you can't be furious and curious at the same time. If you just look at that roommate and ask, I wonder why they do that. I wonder what that means to them. You've built a bridge instead of a wall.
It also mentions listening as well as speaking.
Which is the death of the ego, right?
Yeah.
Listening requires you to admit that you might not have all the answers.
And finally, standing up for others when it matters.
This is where respect becomes active. It's not just passively tolerating people. It's about creating a culture of safety. If I know you'll stand up for me and you know I'll stand up for you, the stress of that shared environment drops dramatically.
We aren't just roommates anymore.
We're a tribe.
So we've got these 4 pillars, but I want to zoom out a bit. The source has a section called Why This Matters in Boarding Life. And it makes a pretty bold claim. It says boarding houses aren't just places to sleep and study. They're places where character is shaped.
Character is shaped. It sounds like a manufacturing process.
But I want to push on this long game idea because I think a lot of students feel like boarding school is a bubble. You know, I'll be messy and dramatic here, but when I get to the real world, I'll lock it in. I'll be professional.
That is the great illusion. The idea that you can just flip a switch when you turn 25, I'll fix my character later.
Exactly. This is just the rehearsal.
But this document, and frankly neuroscience, argues that you are physically wiring your brain right now. You're building your default settings.
So if you spend 4 years gossiping, practicing outrage, and holding grudges,
then you are becoming a person who gossips, holds grudges, and rages. You are greasing those neural pathways. You're making it physically easier for your brain to go down those roads in the future.
So the boarding house is a simulator.
It is a high-fidelity simulator for the human condition. The text says the lessons you learn now, resilience, dignity, self-control, will stay with you long after you leave.
That's the long game.
I mean, think about it. Dealing with a difficult boss at 30? That's just the dirty mug situation with higher stakes. Navigating a marriage during a crisis, that's resilience. Living in a polarized political society, that's respect and curiosity.
So if you can master these things at 16, you are essentially cheating at adulthood. You're getting a head start.
You have the toolkit. While everyone else is reacting, you're reflecting. While everyone else is crumbling, you're staying strong without becoming hard.
That's compelling, but it's also, I mean, it's a lot of pressure. We are talking about teenagers here.
And the source acknowledges that. The outro gives this crucial reality check. You will not always get things right. That is part of growing up.
Oh, thank goodness for that disclaimer.
It's vital. You will snap at your roommate. You will participate in the gossip. You will lose your cool. Mandela wasn't Mandela every single day for 27 years.
So failure is part of the curriculum.
Failure is the data point. The question isn't, did I mess up? The question is, What do I do next?
The source focuses on the cumulative effect. It brings it all back to daily choices.
How you speak, how you respond, how you treat others. These are choices that are available to you every single day. If you mess up today, the sun comes up tomorrow, you're back in the dorm, and you have another chance to practice.
It's the idea that character isn't a final exam, it's a habit.
Exactly. The text says these choices, repeated over time, shape the person you become.
Repeated over time, that's the key.
It's the compound interest of personality.
I love that image. We always talk about compound interest with money. You save a little bit, it grows, and over 30 years, it's a fortune.
Well, character works the same way. Every time you swallow a rude comment, that's a penny in the bank.
Sure.
Every time you choose to listen instead of shout, that's a deposit. Every time you take responsibility for a mistake, you're investing in your own future self.
And those deposits compound over time.
They do. And you wake up 10 years later and you realize you've built this reserve of strength and dignity that you can draw on when life gets really hard.
So if the source is right, and the person you are in the boarding house is the draft version of the adult you'll be, the question isn't just, how do I survive this semester?
No. The question is, what kind of adult am I building?
Precisely, which version of yourself are you writing today? Because unlike a history essay, you can't cram for character the night before graduation. You write it one sentence, one choice, one pause at a time.
And that is a project worth working on.
It really is. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you next time.